guys, it's me, Butterfly Spirit 314. Hey, so guys, tonight what I want to do is I want to make a brief little video for you guys. I don't want to go off onto a tangent somewhere, but I do want to talk about an amazing discovery that I made tonight. So, as many of you guys know, I've been working on my listening skills. And tonight I was listening to a conversation that I had with someone in the past. And when I was listening to this conversation, then, I did not expect to pick anything up from the conversation because I've heard the conversation, 3 times. And, you know, first time I was in the conversation and the message that the person was trying to give me kind of flew over my head. Second time I heard it, I was saying, what this person should do or how I felt about what they should do or whatnot. Okay. But this time when I was listening, some little pieces of information popped in, into my mind and what I was doing this time when I was listening to this person, it wasn't about so much what the person said, but it was about the message that they were trying to communicate to me. And when I basically just took the time to listen, instead of trying to say what they should do or why they were wrong or whatever, when I took the opportunity to really just read between the lines of what they were saying, things changed for me tonight because it really clicked for me and I was like, oh, wait a minute. This is the situation. This is what they're saying to me. But what they're meaning, this is what their meaning is. Like, I finally understood what their meaning was behind what they were trying to say. And I will say this, many times, many of us feel like, what we're trying to communicate to a person is exactly what we say. But sometimes what we say is not what we mean. Sometimes we'll say something and then we'll go off on a tangent and be going to something else and something else. And we never really truly communicate that message to the person. Or we hope they pick up the message, but maybe they don't. Or maybe they don't really care. Or maybe they just want to get their point of view and, or whatnot. It could be a lot of reasons why a person may not get the message we're trying to communicate. But sometimes it's because we may not want to be vulnerable, or the person we're listening to may not want to be vulnerable because they may not want to be judged by us. Tonight, when I was listening to this person and I was listening to what they were communicating, and I was reading between the lines of what they were saying, what I came away with is that this person was really thinking a lot about how they wanted to be, they wanted me to know that they were responsible. They can carry out a task that they were given. They wanted me to know that they show love through their actions. They want me to know that they always try to be prepared for situations, you know, and, they want to avoid hiccups as much as possible. Okay. And for them, you know, they would rather, they would rather make sure that rather than just spending money and getting something that I don't want, they would much rather make sure that they get me something that I like rather than something that, I'm like pissed about later. And did they say these things to me? No. The words that they said to me didn't communicate these things. But it wasn't until I read between the lines and I kind of thought about the situation and put myself in that person's shoes that I started to understand what their message was. which is amazing. I know, right? So, reading between the lines, I will say I'm so glad I finally got here because in my listening book they talked about it, but I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to do it. But now I'm doing it. And, learning to read between the lines, it takes time. And trust me, I'm still baby stepping it, but you know what? I'm discovering that, listening is a skill, like anything. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And it's also about having the right information too. If I never came across the listening book that I bought, I never would have known this stuff. Like, I never would have. And people may think, oh, you know, if I'm someone where I feel like I'm a good speaker, I don't have to listen. But the thing is that listening can be challenging. Like, I can tell you, I get easily distracted in some situations. And when I get easily distracted, I may not even hear what the hell somebody said, you know? And so for me, working on listening, has actually been great for me because it's actually helping me to form like deeper relationships with people and get insight on things that I never thought I would learn, you know? And it's actually helping me. And it can help you too if you choose to develop the skill of listening. You don't have to if you don't want to. But I'm discovering that listening is actually helping me to, you know, like, hell, it's even helping me save money. But yeah, like listening, it makes a difference. And reading between the lines is different. And sometimes we got to focus on those nonverbal cues that people give us too. Because it may not be about what a person says, but it may be about the nonverbal cues, that they give us. You know, it may be about, we know they went through a situation. And now after the situation, we notice that, they look really tired or they look really stressed out or they just seem besides themselves. You know what I'm saying? And, it's really about like taking the time to listen, reading between the lines, looking for those, nonverbal cues, and, you know, putting ourselves in that person's shoes, which is really going to be the thing that's going to help us. And also think about the context of the situation and not just like reacting through emotion. And I know I got to work on that because when I get emotional, then yeah, I may that be the most focus. But the key is, at least I'm working on it and I'm learning a lot about it. And the more I listen to people, the more I learn and understand that when it's appropriate for me to like say something and when it's not, you know? And that makes a difference, you know? That's what I'm discovering. Anyway, thank you guys for watching me today and see you in my next video. Bye bye.